to sit there in there and with a code number or some kind of, code of some kind where only that person would know to be able to get into that ballot box to vote and to cast what's so sacred in our country, and to take part in, and have the right to vote.
And, Senator, let me say this to you. And all of us, I'm pretty certain, have, in many instances, apps where we have our banking accounts and other financial institutions. You now have to have double verification in order to get into it. So the banks have figured it out in terms of making certain that you reduce the probability of the person getting into the account is someone other than the person that's supposed to be.
Well, maybe that's where we should set up shop as well and make it where they have to get into that account to be able to vote from that area. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And I think if all parties would come together and truthfully address this issue head on to make it possible where, it's all for one and one for all. Everyone takes part in being around the table and getting it done once and for all for the people of our state.
People are tired of all of this. I won't say what I was about to say. People are tired of all of the tension in the room between Democrats and Republicans. Some of us saying that this bill is suppressive, others saying that it's fine. Surely there should be a statistical model that's credible out here, and I've got an amendment that for us to look at the bill to determine whether or not it's a good bill and whether it has suppressive tendencies or not. But that's not this particular amendment. But again, I'm thinking that what's wrong with making certain that we do everything in our power to be able to address the concerns of that school teacher who may very well be dealing with COVID and a whole host of other issues, being able to use the most advanced tools in our toolbox in order to participate in an election system without having to deal with a bunch of, I guess you could say, rabbit holes that they may go down and still be able to participate without going down those rabbit holes.
Well, I just want to end it with this on my part. I have a lot of respect for each member that is on this floor. I really do. The leadership, everyone. I do. And I love to work with everyone to make sure we find the solutions to whatever issues that we have concerns with or our citizens have concern with together. I mean, that is what this should be about. Thank you so much.
I agree with you, sir.
Senator Eckhart, for what purpose?
To ask questions of the author of the amendment.
You yield.
I do.
Senator, thank you so much for putting forward this amendment. One question that I have for this amendment, in contrast to the bill that it would amend. The bill that it would amend has a number of provisions requiring local elections administrators to report up to SOS, and then if they fail, to be fined. In contrast, the amendment that you propose doesn't create, but actually supports and further empowers an already existing statewide voter registration database maintained by the Secretary of State, giving the responsibility and the authority to the Secretary of State, making it so much easier for the voter, and also removing the gotchas for the local election administrators who are in good partnership with the Secretary of State. Would you agree that your amendment is much more user-friendly, both for the individual who is seeking to vote, as well as the 254 elections administrators across the state of Texas who are just trying to make sure that the Secretary of State's statewide voter registration database is accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Hughes, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks, Senator West, for the amendment. And it's obviously pretty long and a lot of stuff in there that should be debated thoroughly. The amendment is I think it's more pages than the bill. And well, anyway, it's a lot of pages, and I'm sure the Senate would like time to develop this over time, and so appropriate for a standalone bill. But I'll be voting no on this as an amendment to SB1. I'll be voting no, respectfully.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham,
11
Campbell.
ayes and 18 nays. The amendment fails. The following amendment. Secretary, read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 12 by West.
Senator West, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and members. And I'm going to take a few minutes on this right here. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. Here's the issue. We know that in this country, there is a lot of tension concerning elections, whether or not bills that are being passed throughout the United States are quote unquote suppressive, or whether or not it's good policy. And so the question becomes one of what can we do as a state that leads in order to address those issues. And I'd ask you just take a few minutes, especially my Republican colleagues, take a few minutes and look at this particular amendment. It's called a disparity study. It would be housed in the Secretary of State's office. We would ask the Secretary of State to conduct a disparity study. For those who do not know what a disparity study is, it's a study that determines whether or not there's any quote-unquote disparate impact on a particular ethnic group. In this instance, ethnic groups, the elderly, the disabled. And so we can put to bed as best possible these issues. And Texas can lead once again on this particular methodology. Now, I know some of you don't know what it is. And I know that you will be following the leadership of Senator Hughes on this. But I really ask you to look at this. If we want to get these types of issues behind us, members in the House not being here, or the Senate in some instances not being here sometimes, how do we get those issues behind us? Texans want us to find solutions to these problems. I think this is a solution. If it's not, someone needs to tell me why it isn't a solution. We do it all the time. We make certain that we put in place what we believe policy that address issues. I firmly believe that if we look at an issue, Senator Betancourt, in terms of a disparity study, asking the Secretary of State to do the study, come back with a result, and let us know whether or not this bill, if passed, is in fact a neutral bill that does what our colleagues say it does, or whether there are parts of the bill that are suppressive, then Texas will once again kind of lead in terms of a methodology that other states would be able to follow in addressing these issues, so we wouldn't have protracted discussions about suppression or a bill that's good policy. Move adoption.
Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank Senator West. I'm just reading through and the amendment and listening to you. I don't know exactly what this would be involved with. I don't know that the Secretary of State is set up to do it or has the means to do it. And it sounds like something we should look at. I don't know enough about it to accept it as an amendment on this bill. So I'll be respectfully voting no on this amendment.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Buckingham, Campbell.
11 ayes, 18 nays. The amendment fails. That's all the amendments, members. You recognize passage to engrossment?
I move passage to engrossment.
Secretary will call the roll when ready.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
18 ayes and 11 nays. The bill passes to engrossment. Will hold there. Members, we're going to take up a memorial resolution, adjourn, come right back on third readings.